Hey, this is Gail.
Raphael, how are you feeling from your bike crash?
Much better.
Good.
Much better. I did a 70K ride on Friday.
Wow, 7-0?
Yeah.
Nice. Where do you ride? Is it a city or is it urban? Like, do you get in the rural?
Friday was seashore.
Okay, nice. Oh, that sounds.
Seashore road. But sometimes I'm going in the hills also.
Okay. Sounds pretty. I was just in a one-on-one. Oh, yeah, he's here. Hunter's here.
What's up, everyone?
Hello.
Hello.
All right, let me pull up agenda for today.
Wow, there are a lot of people today.
Yeah, so a fun announcement for today's meeting. Some of the Facebook Magma interns are joining to observe the TSC meeting. So yeah, exciting times.
Magic, the mystery.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and share my screen. I think we have at least 4. I don't see Pravin yet, but he can hop in when he's ready. Okay, so for the agenda today, it looks like we have 2 notes from Gail, and then if Phil is here, yep, Phil's here, he can give an overview of the security policy, and then the path toward either updating or accepting the proposal. And I think that will cover it. We can also open to any ad hoc agenda items as well. Okay, Gail, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, thanks, Hunter. So this link, this is Kendall and I went through and updated the README file to have, there were sections for different like how to contact the TSC, how to engage with the TSC. So we just kind of filled that out and then added a few other pieces of information to it. So policies and procedures, and those are just kind of, a lot of it's generic verbiage, not huge changes, but they're just kind of populating that document. So my ask is not free to vote on it today, but just to review it, provide any feedback if you want to comment on the PR, and then at the next TSC meeting to vote on that.
Cool.
Yeah, it's just like kind of getting it fleshed out so it's a good landing page for the community. And then the other one is just around, so Phil provided me with a list of aliases that are currently on the G Suite like mailboxes do you have set up? So he sent me a list of aliases, and we're getting those staged with the go live date of Friday the 2nd. So there was a small confusion with the with RIT earlier. I started staging and they turned on the MX records and changed them, and I was like, wait, no, I haven't told them yet. So there may have been maybe a half hour, possibly, if you saw any weird mail behavior. I apologize for that. They know now to wait until we have everything in staging, and we'll go live on Friday.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. One note on that is Phil and I had messaged previously about we have a Magma bots account, I think with the previous mail provider, but I was planning to migrate it, but then I realized that we can just wait until we need to access the bots account at some point in the future, and I can just change the email.
I saw that. One of my thoughts around that, so I saw it was bots@magmacore.org and pointed to you. So I'm making an alias just for TSC chair, and having things like that point to that alias, and then we'll have you in that alias. But if you ever change roles, we can just change who it points to.
Cool.
That was kind of my thought process for that. So then you don't need that alias right now, or?
Well, so we created it for the purpose of having a GitHub account that's dedicated just for bots. For example, for pushing the Docusaurus changes. But we don't actually need to log in and access it on a regular basis. We just needed the personal access token. But if we ever need to change anything about that account, then we would need to log in again.
Okay, we'll just create it then, and I'll have it just there. It doesn't have to be used for anything. Just in case you need that way, you don't have to put in a request for me. If you need it, it'll be there for you.
Cool.
Okay.
I have a slightly unrelated question, but so I know I saw in your pull request that it has a list of TSC voting members. And I've also been kind of trying to figure out a good way to map Slack IDs to GitHub usernames. Is there an agreed upon way to do this? Usually in open source.
I'd love to say we have a cool way to do this. We just copy and paste if it's anything like that. And we just kind of try to remember to update it manually periodically. We had the TSC voting members there, but that is a good call to correlate IDs, but we kind of just manually put stuff in usually.
I think if we have to do it manually, it might be good to have one place where every the mapping is stored, and we can keep referencing it. I know that all over our docs, we do try to map manually, and I was trying to update some things earlier, and it's probably going to get out of hand pretty fast.
Yeah.
So maybe if we could just have a map of all, at least for all the maintainers, the mapping in one place, and we can reference, I think that would be really useful.
I think storing that in a GitHub repo could make sense, and then just every time someone gets added to the org, we could update that, or even if it's just for the committers, every time the maintainership gets updated, we can update the mapping.
Genius idea. Everyone come up with a new ID that's just for the Magma docs, and then we map that to the existing IDs.
That's a good call, Marie. I definitely suggest you're free to add other pages that as you see fit, or however you think is a good idea to organize it. We can always, if you guys decide on a way or a place to store that information, we can just include that in this document README, kind of pointing out to that too.
Yeah, I can try to discuss with others and figure out a way, maybe in the Docusaurus inside the repo, and we can refer to it everywhere.
Okay, cool.
It at least matters for all the code owners, where we are suggesting people might want to reach out in Slack. So at least all the code owners, we want the mappings.
Yeah, if we had that in the Docusaurus, we could put a little link on that welcome, thanks for opening a PR message, which it's still not perfect, but at least PR authors have some recourse.
And that was it for me.
Okay. Cool. Phil, do you want to take away the security policy discussion?
Sure. Can I
Yes.
Can I share? Thanks. I think I should be sharing just a reference to the issue that I opened on adding a security policy. Is that up?
Mm-hmm. Add security number 7610.
Yeah. So I wanted to tee this up with the TSC. I talked about it at an earlier meeting, but a couple of weeks ago, an issue came up with a security vulnerability that was identified by one of the Magma team members. And he didn't want to just open a GitHub issue on it because that would be announcing to the world how to get a breakthrough with Magma. And it was actually a pretty simple vulnerability. So I won't go into details about that. It's being worked. There's some Facebook team members treating it as a high priority. But the fundamental thing that it uncovered is that Magma as a project doesn't have a security policy in place. It doesn't have a description of how we confidentially report issues, security vulnerability issues. It's a challenging thing for open source projects that pride themselves on open discussion and transparency to acknowledge that some things need to be treated confidentially. And you have this kind of circular logic where the best way to handle it is to transparently discuss things that the conditions where something would need to be handled confidentially, and then turn it around and disclose that in a managed way once the vulnerability has been addressed. So I went through at Brian's behest and looked through some best practices of how other projects are handling this. And I wrote up a PR, a draft PR, which hopefully, no, it's still not that one. Yeah, I wrote up a draft PR, which you can also reference here. And what I'm really looking for at this point is not approval, but exposure and an open dialogue to make sure that we get feedback on this kind of a policy, how we would handle it, using the best practices that are out there. Some of them are quite complex and convoluted and would require a security staff basically to deal with them, which is not practical for Magma. Some of them are simplistic and unrealistic in their simplicity. I kind of landed on modeling what's done for the VS Code project, which if you want to look it up, their security policy is out on GitHub. It's I believe, a pretty good balance between appropriate action and managed complexity. I mean, not going crazy with it, but it centers on the idea of giving a confidential way to report the vulnerability, a team of people on the project who are committed to treat them with high priority, confidential tracking, and then managed disclosure when the vulnerability is actually resolved, so that we don't hide the fact that we had a vulnerability once we get some meaningful resolution to it. I'm actually not pushing this draft of the PR for approval quite yet. I really want it to be an open discussion item. There's 2 items that have been given to me verbally that we need to deal with. I modeled the VS Code mechanism, which used a PGP-based email as a way to report publishing a PGP key so that you could have a confidential, secure reporting mechanism. But in talking to Michael Chen, it's pretty clear that within the Facebook policies, PGP is not going to not going to cut it. So we probably need to look for a different way to securely report. And then Brian commented to me that the way this is drafted, any security violation is automatically treated the same as a SEV 0, SEV 1, highest priority. But really some of them, we need to have a way to triage the vulnerabilities and look at them with their likelihood of being compromised and the cost of a compromise. You know, you want to treat something that gives you root cut through to the OS that's operating the Magma gateway differently than you want to give something that is a really subtle minor vulnerability that you have a lot of work to go through to exploit. So I need to get some language and look for some more practices around that. But really for today, what I want to get is a sense of the TSC that this is something that is needed or not. And this notion of, you know, confidential treatment within a transparent process or transparent organization is clear and maybe needs some more work. And also to solicit your help in getting people to take a look at this and give feedback and things. I'm also going to take it up at the next Thursday engineering meeting to get an even broader audience looking into this. So that's really all I wanted today. You know, I'll take your questions or comments or feedback. I'd encourage you to take a look at the issue and draft PR that's out there, and then we can talk about it some more. Hopefully it won't drag on, and maybe in 2 weeks when you meet again, I'll have a draft that's ready for an approval review. That's it.
I can give my initial thoughts and feedback. I think in terms of whether we want to keep rolling with this plan to me, it's a definite yes. I view it sort of in the same bucket as the reference hardware design proposal, where it's like probably not existentially necessary at this point in time because we can handle it informally, but it will be at some point in the maybe medium run future. And so sort of having this formalized process ready and even tested before there's any sort of non-trivial incoming set of security vulnerabilities, I think is definitely a big win. I think in terms of publicizing, maybe a good starting point is once you have it in a state that you want like general feedback from the community, just posting a link to it in the announcements channel is probably the most effective way to get eyes on it.
Good idea. Yeah.
And that's what I got.
And Hunter, I'll add color to your comment. I'm actually less concerned about finding a vulnerability that's significant or complicated, because the one that's in play actually is. It's kind of the worst possible thing that could happen to a communication system. But it came from a very friendly source. It came from a Magma insider, a Facebook SWE, a very friendly source. I'm much more concerned about a vulnerability like this being discovered, by a public security researcher who's going to tell us you've got 60 days to respond or I go public, or a customer who discovers it when they're compromised. Those are the things that I think we need to really be concerned about.
For sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's great. For one, I mean, I already had a concerning vulnerability in one of our dependencies that I came across, and I was recently trying to discover it again, actually, because I didn't stash it anywhere, because I was like, where I post this, right? So I discussed it with the team internally, and then it got set aside. and I was trying to raise it again for somebody who was looking for concerning topics around dependencies. And I now am having to regenerate and find the vulnerability documentation, and I'm just doing all the work all over again because there was nowhere safe for me to stash it publicly.
Yeah, interestingly, this is really completely separate from the notion of Dependabot or vulnerabilities within our dependencies. And if you look here, we get Dependabot alerts already, and there's 15 of them currently open. And as a project, we have no managed process to address these. I mean, these are completely separate from what I'm discussing, which is vulnerabilities in Magma itself, but potential vulnerabilities in things because we depend on them. We also use a GitHub code scanning service, which scans for potential security issues. They're mostly things that are really code practice issues or certificate issues that get caught, but things that in the past have tended to drive towards security issues. And again, we don't have a process in play to address these. And Scott, the one that you found may or may not have been flagged by Dependabot. I don't know, you could look through these 15 that are open and the ones that are closed, and maybe you'll see it, because it's actually pretty good once another project has a dependency flagged. And these are usually managed disclosure dependencies, things that follow the cert process, where it's this is a library we depend on, version XYZ. It had this fundamental flaw, and that flaw is fixed in XYZ plus N. And you need to address it. So
yeah, this is excellent. In my case, it's a C dependency, C++ dependency, and this is not covering those.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
Another shortcoming generally of maybe if we used some dependency, I don't know if we used like Conan or other module-based C++ managers. I don't know if that would, if there's any tooling for that in this dimension. I love where this is headed generally in open source, where they're trying to make dependencies more clear and flag problems, because people pin dependencies everywhere. And then if you got pinned vulnerabilities, you could have them for a very, very long time.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I'll tell you from a project perspective, as near as I can discern from what's public, none of the competitive gateway projects that are in the public domain, OMAC or Free 5G or Open 5GS, none of them have publicly published a security policy either. And if you think of it as, competitive advantage, especially when we look at the Ops 5G work that's going on, or things from DARPA, and there's a lot of color around whether those are interesting things for us to pursue. But to those kind of users, just having a security policy in place is generally a requirement. It's not even a thing you can discuss.
Hunter, does the Dependabot stuff work with our Go module, like Go mods or something?
I don't know. I assumed yes, but I can't recall ever seeing any problems with it.
I would think we'd have a lot of dependencies and eventually would have hit.
Yeah. So I have noticed that because we have like a multi go.mod project structure, sometimes external tools that don't get any hints from us can trip up a little bit.
Yeah.
We did have the Dependabot for just raising PRs for our outdated dependencies for Go enabled at some point, but I ended up disabling that because none of them would pass our tests, so we couldn't just automatically accept the PRs. So I'm hoping that was a separate feature from actually turning off the Dependabot vulnerability information for Go, but yeah, to answer your question, I'm not sure.
What how architecturally baked in is the multiple Go mods? You know, if we're kind of more of a mono repo in intent, we've got a lot of non-mono repo behavior going around.
This is something I could talk for a while about, but the short answer is there's a lot of stuff that I would like to sort of ground up improve about how we build the orchestrator, partially because right now, if you want to make a code change, especially if you're running like a local Kubernetes cluster, it takes like 30 minutes to get everything changed and updated. And that obviously could be much improved. And I do think that examining our Go file structure would be one component of that. I think originally the idea was like, these are completely like orthogonal products that happen to be packaged in the same repo, but over time it's kind of turned out that like, while these are domain specific packages, the actual functionality doesn't like preclude us from saying this is the default vanilla set of packages and let's bundle them together under one go.mod, or at least for the cloud. So yeah, I think it's something to look into and something that I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks I'll have some time to make some better decisions on.
Cool.
Okay, cool. So I think
there is one other little thing that I'm just curious about. The PR itself is purely text. It's a Markdown file, but for some reason, even it's a draft. But when it went through the pre checks, it failed on lint, and it's showing a blocked for lint. Not that I want to push it forward, but I wasn't clear that Markdown or English language lint was running somewhere. So I guess
it depends on which check did it fail.
Yeah, and I can't really tell, and it lives in the root directory, which is probably confusing things too.
Just send me a screenshot or like a copy of the error message or whatever after, and I can help figure out what the problem is.
Got it.
Scott is still look like the Docker file linting is still failing again.
Yeah, there might be something failing, like a non-required check failing on master or something that might be unrelated, but yeah, I can give input and we can figure it out. Okay, cool. So I think as far as follow-ups for next week, we can all just read the Gale's governance updates, and then we can vote on that as a proposal. And then, skim through the security policy if you haven't. And then when Phil's ready, he can bring it back either for, sort of final discussion or for proposal voting. But I think, yeah, it's definitely like the right direction and definitely something that I think will bring a lot of value, or at least help remove a source of potentially large negative value. So yeah,
please, if you read through it, leave your comments on the GitHub issue or somewhere that's going to leave breadcrumbs, because this is one we want to make sure there's evidence that it was publicly discussed and treated. So
cool. All right. For the last minute or two, if anyone has ad hoc topics that they wanted to bring up, now's the time.
I do have like one quick update. So I know 2 months ago or so, I did a proposal about like CI on call, and initially I had in mind that it would be like a public on call rotation managed by Magma core. There were some hiccups in terms of secret management and just, like the logistics of having this publicly, that currently I've set up a rotation, like a role, like on-call resolution steps manual, and I've included in our like Facebook's internal on-call rotation. We'll try it out with the intention of eventually moving to like some, Magma core foundation based on-call. So that's just an update that we are trying to make an effort to monitor CI health on master, and we also have steps in place currently to put in merge freeze when master is badly broken. So something that, you know, contributors might notice from time to time. But yeah, I think that's the summary of the update, but yeah.
So to clarify, is it was external in like a prototype capacity, and then it's getting moved back into Facebook managed with an aim toward moving it back external once things get stabilized?
The problem is that the integration tests currently running on master that like cause the most problems are managed like inside Facebook. Gotcha. So if we want to triage, like we have to move all the infrastructure to like a publicly accessible place.
I see. So it's just a dependency on when we're moving.
Yeah, but I see. Yeah, and the like the steps should not change. We'll just like move like a file to Docusaurus when it's public.
Cool. All right. Cool. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, if there's additional topics, just throw them in the agenda for next time. And we'll see everyone in 2 weeks.
Yes. Bye.